Mike Cardano with Roto Experts in the Fantasy Sports Network, here to talk about top tournament daily fantasy plays for Week 6 as we strive to find NFL players with big upside and potential low ownership to help you separate from the field and climb your tournament leaderboard in daily fantasy. And one of the fun things about playing on DraftKings is a pricing system that's a bit more dynamic, willing to move salaries based on recent performance and quality of matchup. And we're seeing this with Eli Manning this week, as his $7,800 price tag has him in no man's land, which may lead to a low ownership level despite a great matchup. Over the past couple of seasons, Manning has seen a large and predictable rise in his fantasy points per game in very easy matchups. This matchup certainly qualifies. The Eagles are giving up 26.4 points per game, lack a quality secondary, and are allowing the fourth most passing attempts per game. Add all that up, and opposing quarterbacks are averaging 21.2 fantasy points per game against the Eagles, the second highest mark in the league. Now, Manning should thrive in a high-quality, high-volume matchup, especially considering the improving receiving core around him and potential uptick in passing attempts with Rashard Jennings on the shelf. Jeremy Hill is a huge risk in cash games due to his lack of touches, but he's worth taking a chance on in tournaments. The Panthers have been surprisingly horrible against the run this season. They rank 27th in rush defense, according to Football Outsiders, and they've yielded monstrous fantasy games to opposing running backs in 3 consecutive weeks, including twice allowing both backs of a committee to exceed double-digit fantasy points. On top of the quality of the matchup, the projected game flow is working in Hill's favor. The Bengals are 7-point favorites at home here and could find themselves running the ball often in the second half. Now, Hill is their preferred option running between the tackles, and if the Bengals are smart, they'll use him to chew clock in the second half. Now, Hill's averaging an impressive 4.8 yards per carry, while Giovanni Bernard is below average at 3.6 yards per carry. Bishop Sankey burned a lot of people last week as he didn't receive anywhere near the volume that Coach Ken Whisenhunt had indicated. And for that reason, people will likely remove Sankey from their radars this week, making him low-owned despite the upside at a cheap price point. Eventually, the Tysons are going to have to give him more volume. They blew a huge lead last week, and Whisenhunt is no doubt feeling some heat to play the young, talented running back. Sankey was the top-rated running back of his draft class and showcased his elite athleticism at the Combine. This matchup is ideal for Whisenhunt to unleash Sankey. The Titans are 6-point home favorites against an awful Jacksonville team that allows the 8th most rushing attempts per game and 5th most red zone rushing attempts per game. One way to win in tournaments is to key in on an elite player that will be low-owned due to a tough matchup. That's exactly what we have here with Dez Bryant as the Cowboys head to Seattle to face a premier pass defense led by Richard Sherman. However, Bryant has the elite skills necessary to succeed in any matchup. Only A.J. Green and Jordy Nelson average more fantasy points per opportunity among wide receivers with 20 or more targets on the season. One of the reasons Bryant is so efficient from a fantasy perspective is his prowess in the red zone. He has converted 55 red zone opportunities into 22 touchdowns since 2011, giving him a red zone conversion rate of 40%, which is the highest of any wide receiver with 20 or more targets over that time frame. Due to Seattle's stout run defense, opposing teams are throwing the ball 64% of the time against them, which is second most in the NFL, including 67% of the time in the red zone, which is fourth most in the NFL. It's also possible that the Cowboys go the route the Packers did when they faced Seattle in Week 1 and hide the lesser wide receiver on Richard Sherman in order to free up their top receiving target. Now finally, it should be noted that since DraftKings' pricing system takes into account matchup difficulty, Bryant's $6,600 price tag leaves him only the 10th most expensive wide receiver on the board this week. With all the attention on the Chargers offense going to the direction of Brandon Oliver, Eddie Royal may be too quickly forgotten coming off his first single-digit fantasy performance over the last 4 weeks. It's easy to think that Royal's big games were fluky, but there's actually reason to expect him to have continued success this season. His 20% market share of the targets and 9.3% market share of red zone opportunities aren't spectacular, but give him enough volume to be consistent on a week-to-week basis. Now, the upside comes from playing on an efficient offense, and in a plus matchup, Royal, despite his size, has a well above average 37.5% red zone conversion rate since 2011, turning 24 targets into 9 touchdowns. He'll face an Oakland Raiders defense that ranks 29th against the pass, according to Football Outsiders, and has the second highest DVOA allowed to slot receivers. One key to unlocking tournament success is to target cold players anticipating a turnaround in their performance rather than waiting for it to occur first. Now, Jordan Cameron is having an awful season, which is reflected in his near minimum price tag on DraftKings this week, but there's reason for hope. And while it didn't show in his final stat line from last week, Cameron appeared healthier and he had a lot of volume directed his way. He played in a season-high 73 out of a possible 78 snaps while receiving 7 targets, which was second most on the team, and it exceeded his numbers from his first 2 games combined. Now, Cameron is the only true red zone receiving threat that the Browns have, and he'll be facing a Steelers team that's in the bottom third of the NFL in fantasy points allowed to tight ends, and the bottom half in overall pass defense, according to both Football Outsiders and Pro Football Focus. For more in-depth analysis on top tournament daily fantasy plays during the season, head on over to rotoexperts.com and sign up for the Daily Fantasy Football Package. Our experts Drew Dinkmeyer and Mike Leone get you ready each week with strategy articles, site-specific cheat sheets, and recommendations that highlight the top value plays each week, and they send you updated injury information right to your inbox with our lineup alerts feature. Become a member of the Daily Fantasy Rundown team at rotoexperts.com by signing up for the Daily Fantasy Football Package. For Roto Experts and the Fantasy Sports Network, I'm Mike Cardano.